Hi, welcome to this free webinar training session. Today we're going to be focusing on going through a number of slides, using a number of templates that we have in place, and those templates are free to anyone who wishes to access them. They're on our free resources on our website. So, business continuity, what are we referring to? So we're looking to protect our business, our employees, our suppliers, and our customers from the potential business interruptions that could happen at our workplace. We want to manage the operations during those interruptions. So in order to do that, we want to try and set rules and make everyone aware of how we would follow out these rules. We want to demonstrate to our stakeholders and interested parties how we go about doing this. Give them confidence in working with us that if there is disruptions, we can demonstrate to them that we have mitigation measures in place to have minimal impact. What are the real benefits? Well, provide confidence to these people that we're working with, that we will continue our operations as best we can. Communicate how we will go about doing that to minimize the impact. Set goals, targets, and importantly, timelines on how we will achieve it, and who will take the responsibilities of doing what. And importantly, we want to set plans in place that can be tested to ensure that when we need to use them, then they're available. The method of doing this is to identify the potential risks, what impact they could have, who will be impacted, identify what will be done, who will be responsible, so that you clearly know the names and their contact details, because remember, in these situations, it may be that you don't have access to the office to people, so you may have to be able to contact them at home or on their mobile phones. What the responsibilities of these people have, and often we suggest that organisations develop a process or procedure in how this is formulated. We mentioned about a plan. Often organisations will use a template for this. This can be the template that we're going to talk about today, which you can get on our free resources page, or it could be a template from another source. We want to populate the plan as best we can with the information that we have at our hands. We want to share it within our organisation, taking information back, getting feedback from the people we work with, those that may have experienced a business continuity situation, those that have worked in such situations before that can share their best knowledge. Once we have that plan developed and in place, we then want to issue it out to the organisation, and we want to train the people that have responsibilities in the business continuity plan of what it is that they're responsible for. It's important also that we test the plan at periodic intervals so we understand where it's required to be used in this interruption or emergency situation, that it's going to be as good as it possibly can. So undertaking desktop exercises and communication exercises around this is important to test this, including the ability to possibly access data and information from a remote location, and also the ability to be able to access communication channels to supply chain, customers, etc. When we do the test, it's also important we recognise our weaknesses. It's important to embrace those weaknesses and develop improvement plans so that we improve our possibility of being successful when the business continuity plan really has to be used. And when we make those improvements, we must share and educate our workforce and our stakeholders who have responsibilities within our business continuity plan. It is important to recognise that a business continuity plan may have sections within it that are very much focused on IT disaster recovery, and often those may be supported by third-party organisations. So what would be our takeaways that we would suggest specifically for business continuity? Planning is the most important attribute. Identifying what are your greatest risks, not the risks of another organisation where you've received a copy of their business continuity plan. It's got to be about the risks to your business. Ensure everyone's aware of their role it must be tested. And the reason for testing it is we want to identify the weaknesses that we can improve on. So it's a cyclic approach to how we ensure that the plan stays fresh and stays effective for when we have to use it. Some of the templates we're going to refer to today, you can get at our free resources section, and we're going to jump on and show you some of that now. So we spoke about identifying potential risks. There are various methodologies in doing this. The one I'm going to jump on at the moment is a template we've worked on over the years, which is focused on business risks and opportunities. And within here, we may want to identify disaster recovery as being one of them. And we use a risk matrix methodology of likelihood and impact to give us a risk score. What the existing control measures are that we have within the organisation that we believe will ensure that these disruptions to our business are minimised, and where we have tested or identified improvement areas, what new mitigation actions we might want to put in place to address certain weaknesses or concerns. This can be done as part of an overall business risk strategy, or it can be a separate risk assessment associated to business continuity only. This is a template you can use for that, and again is available on our free resources. So jumping back to the slides, what we mentioned is that formulating a process is quite important. So what I'm going to show you is a process that we developed a number of years ago. This process is looking at business risk assessment and impact analysis, referring to business continuity. So we're wanting to look at identify the business risks within our organizations, what could be disruptive incidents that could have a negative impact on our operations or impact our clients or supply chain. An analysis of that impact so that we can prioritize where we put our resources based on the greatest risk to our organization. And again, using that previous template would assist in that. Implementing the controls, so ensuring that we have the controls in place that are going to work against these business interruptions. Reviewing them to make sure that they're correct, and methodologies of reviewing can be using an internal audit process, a management review process, or simply a continual improvement process. Developing our strategy for our business continuity is about protecting prioritized activities, stabilizing and continuing and resuming and recovering those prioritized activities, and putting mitigating and responding factors in place so that we can manage the impact as best we can. By doing this, we typically would set objectives on our business and on people within our organization with those responsibilities. Those objectives would normally be assigned to resources. That could be individuals, could be information that's important, buildings or facilities and infrastructure, or IT systems. Possibly it could also include transportation that we use, our finances and our supply chain. And the protection and mitigation factors that we take is to reduce the likelihood of the disruption, possibly shorten the period of disruption if it occurs, and ideally limit that impact of that disruption to all stakeholders. We speak here now about the plan that should be used and what we should do about identifying the incidents and potential incidents, identifying the responses we would take to those incidents, who have the roles and responsibilities so that we ensure that it's effective, what warnings and communications we may undertake to communicate with stakeholders when we're in that situation, and importantly, the recovery processes that we take to try and minimize the impact to ourselves and our stakeholders. We also mentioned about the exercising and testing of the plan, whether that be on a desktop or a live plan, in order that we can be prepared when a situation does occur. And importantly, the last area is ensuring that we improve upon weaknesses that we identify. So that's a general process that could be followed. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump on to the business continuity plan itself. So this is a template we created a number of years ago, and the aim of this plan is to record how the business will react and resolve to emergencies and other risk impacts to our operations. So the objective is to define and prioritise the critical functions of the business, to analyse the risks to the business, to detail the agreed responses that we will take, and to identify the key contacts that will be responsible for undertaking this plan. We identify using a certain business model what the inherent business risks and mitigations will be. What the business model that we will use is to manage a smooth and wide swing of our business activities across our business sectors. What impact it will have on our business income, our critical hardware, software and services, and any failure in any equipment or suppliers. And importantly, we want to identify any major significant cost increases that could occur in these disruptive times. The most significant risks that we identify in this plan would be associated to financial or legislative changes. And we've identified what we believe those areas may be. So this may be related to infections and pandemics. And it is important to recognise that this plan, created back in 2018, is not taking into consideration the current global situation that we're in at the moment. So we recognise that many of the people within our organisation are not working close by one another at any one time, but they could be working close by other customer employee members. We recognise that we have important documents that we hold, but have recognised that many of these are now moved on to a cloud-based system using SharePoint and also our Mango compliance software tool. Access to the company offices doesn't prevent most of our personnel carrying out day-to-day work, as they do have the capability to work from home or remote locations, including at client sites. And loss of internet to our offices may reduce access to certain information, but again, given that we've moved most of our services over to a cloud-based solution, we feel that we have the correct channels in place to support that. So a review of our business risks matrix for this template identified 5 key areas that could be attributed to an unexpected adverse event. So we've identified an emergency related to a member of personnel, unavailability of key member of personnel, a bad news story that could have leaked to the press or been a result of a social media posting, office premises unavailable for use, and access to the internet being restricted. What we've done then is we've taken a critical recovery plan, and we've taken those 5 areas we mentioned above. And I would probably say in the current situation at the moment, I would add an additional one in there associated to the pandemic and how we as an organisation are responding to that. Every company, as you would imagine, respond in a different way. So it's important that I mention again that you go back to the risks and impacts to your organisation and go through that and work through that effectively with all stakeholders. So we identify here that emergency relating to a member of personnel, and it's important here that we identify set timelines. These are not timelines that you must stick to. This could be within the first hour, the first day, and so on. These are timelines that we have put in this draft template that can be worked with. We've identified what recovery tasks and resources may be required, who would be responsible, and where others in the organisation may need to support. And this would be what we undertake at least within the first 24 hours, the first 3 days, the first 2 weeks, and possible long-term activities. We then move on to the unavailability of key personnel, where again we identify who would take on the responsibility of taking actions within the first 24 hours. In this case, we've identified that we would have to inform a client if that particular person within our organization was delivering a project or a piece of work for a client. So if it's a critical part of a project or work, we would provide a substitute to attend or visit the client to discuss what the options are for that client, and so on and so forth. And again, we have another example here associated to a media story or social media. And, I will not discuss in this recording, but we've had to put this in place before a number of years ago. We had a situation with an employee that we had to put this business continuity plan in place around this activity to protect our organisation and go through a process of interviewing, and importantly, to protect our client in this situation. This was added to this template as part of that situation, where we've seen it as an improvement area to raise awareness of the reputational damage that could potentially occur if such a situation was not managed correctly. Happy to say in that situation it was. Moving on to number 4, same process we follow associated to our office premises being unavailable, and again down to our internet or those case broadband. It is important that I've mentioned here in terms of an IT disaster recovery plan. We're not specifically going into that in this session. IT disaster recovery plans, we have a template for that you can get in our free resources, but it's important to recognize that most organizations have a very different IT infrastructure setup, and often they rely upon third parties. So if you're developing a IT disaster recovery plan, it's important to work with those stakeholders and third parties that support your organization and how they can help you put that recovery plan in place. And what I would say is that may form part of your business continuity plan, or it may just be an addendum that you add to it and refer out to from your business continuity plan. We identify who the critical functions are within our organization that have to happen in form of priority in terms of managing our staff, our contractors, our contracts that we need to manage with our clients, any accounts that we need to manage, finances, sales, and so on. We then identify who the key contact people are within the organization, and it is important as part of that testing process we spoke about that we go through this and ensure that it's still working. These key contacts may be people within the organization and outside of the organization. And of course, we refer to our maintenance and testing that we undertake as part of our recovery process. We have identified a checklist as well that allows us to go through and ensure that we are capturing all areas of what actions we're going to take. Importantly, we always would do a debrief at the end of a test to make sure we have everything in place. And here we would identify any recovery operations that didn't work so well that we need to take action upon. Okay, so just going to jump back to the slides. So just to say that was a short session of our training webinars on business continuity, focused on protecting your business, employees, suppliers, and customers from potential business interruption. Thank you very much.